this is the opportunity to learn from these guys and really start to reshape this profession, because a lot of disenchantment is the way that the profession is run now. Okay, learn how to keep a successful business, but then learn how to reshape that business.
Welcome to the Archispeak podcast. I'm Evan Troxel. Each episode, Neil Pan, Cormac Phelan, and I have a casual conversation about all things architecture, and we invite you to listen in as we talk about everything in the profession, both the good and the bad. Maybe you're considering a career in architecture, you're still in school, or you've been around the blocks of Corbusier's City of Tomorrow more times than you'd like to admit. Join us in the studio as we stand around the water cooler and talk about why we love our chosen profession. It's time for some Archispeak.
I died in South Africa, only outlined my body in Tiffany's blue. When I died, I drove right in and swam with the dolphins and Lisa Frank. And you.
Welcome to episode 48 of the Archispeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
And first up, we have some sponsors. This show, being episode 48, is sponsored by Wallprotex and Bueno Box. And I just want to say we're really excited to have them both sponsoring this episode. And we'll get to talking a little bit more about each of them later in the show. So stay tuned for that. And once again, thank you to both of them. And if you would like to sponsor the show, go to archispeak.com/sponsor, and you can find out about the slots we have available for sponsoring. So make sure you do that. Evan, who do we have the friend of the show this week?
All right, this week we have a friend of the show who donated based on our last episode, I believe, which was about the missing 32% symposium. And so that was Reedy Sangvi, and she is a friend of ours on Twitter, and she says that she enjoys every second of listening to us, which I really can't believe. And thanks for bringing the architectural community together and being a great resource. So thanks, Reedy, for the donation. We really appreciate it. Anybody who wants to get their name read on the show and become a friend of the show, more importantly, go ahead and head over to archispeakpodcast.com/donate. And you guys really do help make the show possible. And every bit of donation helps make that happen. So thank you.
Great. So up this week, we actually had a listener and a friend of yours, Evan, throw us a suggestion to talk about.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Pete Lavelle. He's also a friend of the show and been a longtime listener. He sent in an article that he saw on, it's on the BDC network, Building, Design, and Construction, talking about how this thing called the curse of the baby boomers. It's very, very ominous. But basically, the thesis is that in the next 15 years, the number of architects and engineers in the 55 to 64 age group is going to increase by 47%, while the number of those in the 33 to 54-year-old age group is going to decrease by 6%. And so if you put all that together, there's going to be a big problem when all of the boomers leave the profession. There's going to be a giant hole of valuable knowledge that will be gone. So that's kind of the main point of the article. So we thought we would tackle that for a little bit here.
The article says there's going to be a loss of thousands of baby boomers who are currently the core management base of their firms. And yeah, that's probably, that likely will be true. But another way to kind of look at this when I first read this was, this is an incredible opportunity for a number of people that, first off, we've talked in the past and even on our last episode about all the people leaving the profession at different stages for many different reasons. But here I see an opportunity for people to stick with it, over this next 15 years, according to the article. The number of people is going to decrease in the younger age group. So if you're in that younger age group, what that tells me is that as these people, the boomer generation and the X generation, start to leave the ownership and or the management of firms, it's going to leave a hole there that's going to get filled. It's going to be filled. It's not like firms are just going to disappear. but it's going to get filled, and it's going to get filled by the folks that are behind all these other people. So if you're younger, you're in the profession, just starting out here, this is an incredible opportunity. One, to kind of learn from these people that may be in this other generation, and get that knowledge, get that technical and the managerial experience, the institutional knowledge. And then when they're getting ready to retire in 15 years, you're going to be in that 33 to 54 age group, and you're going to be the next person up. It's also going to be an opportunity for, I think, women in architecture to fill those roles. It's going to be an opportunity for minorities in architecture to fill those roles, because all the other, old white guys are going to be getting out. Right? I mean, to kind of say it that way, but that's what's going to happen.
That's true. Yeah.
And so this is an incredible opportunity, I think.
Well, I mean, I was going to say that, this is, you say that kind of jokingly, but it's also the opportunity for architecture to start to remake itself.
Oh, I wasn't joking about that. I'm being dead serious about it as an opportunity for other folks in the profession, women and other minorities, to step up and to fill these roles, because the roles will be available. So I'm not joking about that at all. I think I'm being very serious about that. There'll be lots of opportunity for people to fill those roles that are that are currently minorities and or women.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to kind of go back to this and read between the lines and maybe talk a little bit about why would the older generation increase by 47% while the younger generation decreased by 6%. It seems to me like, obviously people are staying in the profession longer and longer, I think, but this kind of gets back to the last episode where people in their younger years are seeing that there maybe isn't a place for them to be promoted into. And so if there's not going to be a position that's going to allow for growth, then they're looking to go do something else. Now, that is just one possibility.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that as people get a little disenfranchised with architecture early on, as we've spoken about on our millennial episode, they leave the profession. And those people aren't coming back. I think the recession hasn't helped that. A lot of people have left. And so I think when you combine that, those numbers, those two events, let's put it that way, I think you're going to see over the next 15 years, the number of people in architecture is going to have that 6% decrease. I think that's where that number is coming from.
Well, I've seen, and I'll have to hunt down the article, but that we're actually seeing a pretty significant rebound in our profession with, new hires, the job market's, starting to come back. New housing starts and stuff are actually on the rise. And with people leaving the profession because they've been disenfranchised or disillusioned by how hard it was to basically find and get a job at any point in time. It's either the time for them to kind of jump back in, or it's the time for them to kind of stick with it and really kind of, as we said, learn the tricks of the trade, learn how to do the management, learn how to, put buildings together and all that other stuff, and really kind of stick with it. Because if we are going to see this influx or outflux of the boomers leaving the profession for retirement and everything else, they should stick around and, start making it their own now, so that when they take over, they'll have that opportunity to become the new leadership. I mean, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say you're hitting on a very interesting point there, because when I first came out of school in the early 90s, we were coming out of another, not as bad, but another recession. And it really wasn't until several years later, really probably till about 96, going into 97, that things really started to rebound nicely and coming back. And where I was going with this is that, when I finally finished at Cal Poly in 93, if you take that time, you stay in that profession, you get over the hump, that initial, say, 3-year hump, and you start, making, and doing well, say, and you get a few raises and you're moving up in the firm. If you take that 15-year period, I mean, we're talking, this would be 93, 94. So 15 years, we're talking, 2005. That's roughly 2005, 2006, 7. That's that roughly 15-year period that we're talking about here. And a lot of people that I worked with were doing just that. They were moving into some ownership, some taking on associate roles at firms and stuff like that. And so I guess what you're saying is now, as we're beginning to emerge from this most recent recession, those people that are sticking with it. And, if you're just coming out of school now and you stick with it for the next 15 years, we're looking at, is this 2014, it's 15 years now, we're going to be closer to, 2028, 29 is when you're going to hit that 15-year mark. And if we can, sustain a halfway decent growth rate in the profession and in housing starts and everything over that 10 or 15-year period, then that'll be your opportunity, because, a lot of folks will be moving out of the profession and you'll have your opportunity then. So I think this is a good time to try and encourage folks to, people coming out of school or just young in the profession, to stay in it.
Right.
Because if this maintains, now, there's no guarantee. And even over the 15-year period I was talking about, from say 94 through 2006 and 7, we had a little bit of a dip in 2000, 2001 there at the dot-com boom, or bust, I should say, that happened. So there were some ups and downs, but for the most part, if you look at that 15-year period, it was a pretty good run, and everybody was doing really well. That didn't necessarily save anyone when everything fell apart in 2008 and 2009 and 2010. I mean, I knew people that, that made that ride that were, really good, very important to firms. And then they all got laid off because everything crashed. So there's no guarantee here, but, this is positive news that if there's less people available, there's going to be more jobs for those people that are still there.
Well, this is a big opportunity for the profession as a whole to basically learn from the past. I mean, the way that people are doing business in general is changing, and it's changing rapidly. And, a lot of it has to do with, technology-based, business doings. But I think this is an opportunity for architecture as a whole to start to remake itself and start to, and, I don't want to say make itself recession proof, but be able to learn how to deal with the ebbs and flows of the profession. Because there's going to be a lot of times when, we're going to always face these challenges, economically, sometimes we're going to have booms, sometimes we're going to have busts. And there's so many firms that we've seen in the past not be able to ride this, those waves, and they go out of business, or they, through the good times, they hire up, and then the bad times, they start letting people go. I mean, now it's the opportunity to start thinking about business in a far smarter way, so that we're able to, deal with these a lot better. And, whether it be things like, telecommuting and things like that, where we can start to, cut overhead, but we're still being able to maintain profitability. I mean, there's a variety of things, and I don't want to, use this episode is to, try to brainstorm, what are the ways of, making a good, lean, strong, architecture firm. But I think these are opportunity. I think that talking about the outflux of the baby boomers is the opportunity for the next generation to really think about how are we going to do business as an architecture firm in the future.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I think that the boomers should be looking for the people who are going to be replacing them.
Yes.
Number one, that's pretty much one of their biggest concerns, I think, is to find the right people and to teach them everything they know. You know, one of the things that technology has changed is that people don't talk as much, and we don't record history the same ways that we used to. And so it's more important than ever for young people in the industry to find mentors. It's not the other way around, guys. It's you need to find the people that you want to learn from. You need to identify who they are and stop waiting around for them to find you, because you get to pick who you want to be mentored by, and you also get to change it if you don't like what you're getting. So that's a big part of it, is how is the knowledge passed on, right? How do you capture it, and how do you institutionalize it? And I think there are technological ways to do that that haven't really taken hold yet. You know, there's the whole idea of the wiki, right, is a great way to do that, because every firm operates completely differently, it seems like. You know, obviously there's threads of similarities, but I know my firm operates a lot different than the firm you work for, Cormac. So there's going to be special ways that things happen, and that firm is going to have to find its own path into the future. So I think that's a big one. So the current leaders need to be finding who those people are and identifying them so that they think, you know, play the long game is how I think about it. They need to be thinking, how are we going to help make this practice work for future generations, not just ourselves?
Yeah, because, I mean, you know, there's kind of an interesting split. There are those who are like, you know, these damn kids, you know, and I don't want to learn this technology, and they don't really want to embrace what is essentially going to be the future. And then there's others that are, you know, this is my legacy, you know, so I want to shore it up and I want to embrace this. And you're right, find the right people that, you know, I can pass on what knowledge I've gained so that, you know, I can create my own legacy and let it live on through, you know, the strength of someone else's, you know, the next generation's firm.
Yeah, I think part of the biggest thing, one of the things that's really difficult, I should say, for a lot of people who are in these positions, they've worked so long and so hard to get there, and they want to enjoy it, and they want to do things, and they want to be used for the experience they have, and you know, at the same time, it's really important for those people to figure out what the next generation's really good at, figure out how to allow it to happen, and then get out of the way.
Yeah.
So that it can happen. And I think that is really hard for a lot of people in those positions, is the getting out of the way part, because everybody does tend to micromanage to some degree, right? Some people are a lot worse than others, and it's really difficult, I think, to get out of the way.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because I had this conversation with my boss today, because we've got some staffing changes coming up in the office, and you know, a couple of people are leaving, and we've got new people coming in, and we're also, you know, promoting within to have you know, new people take over, you know, senior positions, senior project architects, project managers, and things like that, and we're using this opportunity to start to rethink on how we deal with new people coming in, how we mentor them, how we, you know, create a, you know, an office environment that, you know, really promotes retainage and things like that. You know, we were talking about, you know, how when he was being promoted through, you know, it was kind of the same way, you know, people were getting ready to retire, you know, like the founders and of the firm and stuff, they were, you know, getting ready to retire, and so they were promoting people from within to kind of take over the leadership. And so it was a cycle of, you know, you come in, you know, kind of pay your dues, you work towards, you know, gaining all of that knowledge, and then, you know, you hope to kind of work that way. And we've had this conversation with the millennials that, you know, it's not necessarily the same way coming up, But in a way, we sort of need to foster that mindset that it's not about paying your dues. It's really about establishing what you want as the future of your own, your own career, and how do you gain that knowledge? And a lot of times it's through experience and through, basically learning off of the senior project architects, project managers, principals and stuff like that. But they need to learn, as they're transitioning out of, say, a project manager's role into, say, a principal's role, that it's time to sort of let go of the project manager's mentality and, develop your next level of career development, and let the people that you've felt comfortable with, developing them to the project manager, let them kind of grow and flourish. And there's that interesting kind of difficulty of letting go, just like what you said. It's that, they have this problem of letting go. And
the micromanagement is a definite problem, and it is one of those things where if you don't give a younger person ownership and the ability to not do everything perfectly,
right,
then that person is never going to own what they're working on,
right,
and they just say, you know what, screw this, I'm out of here. Right?
And that was actually the main topic of conversation. I'm glad you kind of brought that home for me, because we really were talking about how do we foster ownership in a project from the very junior of person on the project to the most senior of project, where everybody feels like this is their project. Because once you foster that sense of pride, you're gonna want to have more. I mean, it's that it's the architecture drug. It's just like, ooh, I really like this. I mean, I saw the sketches and now it's a building, and, the excitement that we feel, I mean, kind of the point and purpose of behind doing this is, we are really excited about this profession. The excitement that we have, I mean, that's how every project needs to, move forward and stuff. And that's what we were talking about today. It's just like, this is the opportunity to really teach people and really let them feel, even teach them through excitement. You don't have to teach them through, it's a 9-to-5 job, I got to punch in, do all this other stuff. No, it's teach them through excitement. Teach them through having a shared ownership of the project.
All right, let's take a minute away from the show to talk about the first sponsor this week, who is WallProtects. Once again, they're back with another sponsorship for ArchiSpeak, and we really appreciate it. And what we would love everyone to do is to head on over to WallProtects, that is WallProtects with an X at the end of it, .com, where you can see their commercial wall protection products. If you're doing any kind of commercial project where you need high-end wall protection that is innovative, customizable, and durable, so if you're doing healthcare projects, if you're doing school projects, if you're doing civic work, anything where you need durable stuff against the walls, definitely check them out. They've got a team of dedicated in-house engineers and manufacturers, and not to mention over 70 customizable colors and styles to make your visions a reality. So we would love it if you would go over to wallprotects.com. Again, that's WallProtects with an X, and check out what they've got to offer, and let them know that you heard about them on ArchiSpeak. We would appreciate that very much. Thanks, WallProtects, for sponsoring ArchiSpeak. And now, back to the show. Well, I think there's a lot of cynical boomers out there who would rather...
Yeah.
They've been neutered over the years to not have that passion anymore, and I think that that's why I recommend the younger generations to seek out who they want to be mentored by, instead of the other way around, because it's our job to find those people with the passion so that it does keep it alive and kicking throughout the projects.
Well, I mean, Neil, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question, because one of the things that I see maybe making this transition a little more difficult, more so over the next 15 years, and probably it's been a slow transition already for the last 15 years, let's say, than it was, say, 30 and 40 or 50 years ago. And that is getting to technology. And where I'm going with this is that I'm going to say some of the firms that I know and have worked with, much of the senior management and or ownership of the firms don't do any CAD work. And not that an owner needs to sit down and do his own drafting. That's not what I'm getting at. But what I'm getting at is that much of the people that are working, let me not make generalities here. What I have seen is that, a number of people that have entered the profession as drafters, as CAD drafters, and you maybe you've expanded your technology and you're doing your Revit models, and maybe you're doing some 3D renderings, and you've kind of expanded your knowledge over time, but you're often still seen by ownership as, somebody that's getting the job done. And, how does the technology change this transition from going from, say, a job captain to a project manager, then to ownership? I mean, each level there means you're doing different things. And are we willing to, as those of us that have kind of started to grow up with this technology, or maybe really enjoy doing it, do we want to leave it behind and transition to different phases of our careers and different phases of, being in management of the firm, which involves sometimes many different things, or am I just kind of looking at this in too narrow of a scope that we can do it all, but maybe not. I don't know.
I think you're looking at just kind of like a narrow focus of just, the technology. And I don't honestly think that, for me, I don't think that, that's really what's going to make you move up is, your mastery of, Oh
no, that's not what I'm talking about. Is that you're not moving up into the firm because you're a master BIM modeler. Are you seen by the owners now as somebody who can be an owner and not essentially do the BIM master anymore, because you're going to be doing other aspects of ownership in the firm? And are you seen that way by ownership? And are you willing to give up that BIM master title or whatever it might be, right? Because
you should.
Well, I think that nobody who is the BIM master is going to be that person for the most part in a larger firm setting.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get so good at it that that's all you will ever do.
Well,
Go ahead.
But I was going to say, there's the mentality of you get so good at it that there's some people who that's all they want to do. They don't want to, and I've experienced this with, a couple of, project architects, that they enjoy doing the CAD work, that they purposely don't want to try to push themselves further to become, a project manager, and then, push themselves even further later on down the road. They feel comfortable that if they can shore up their knowledge, that they've got job security to be able to just, I can get a project done and I can, get it out the door, and I know how to put together a set of documents and stuff. But it's the people, and I think this is where you might have been going, Evan, is it's the people who, this is just a portion of the knowledge base that you're going to have. I mean, you're going to be able to build, I can do BIM. Hell, let's use me as an example. I could do CAD like nobody's business when, I was required to do CAD like nobody's business. Then I had to transition into doing BIM. I may not be the best at Revit, but I can do Revit, and I know how to recognize problems in it, and I can do enough to not be dangerous and screw up a model. But these are just tools of a small portion of what I have to do throughout a day. I, need to learn how to talk to a nuance and do whatever with the clients, and then the engineers and the contractors and everybody else. I need to, learn how to, or need to be able to put together presentations and scope studies and feasibility studies and all these other things. And when you say, and maybe I'm reading what you're saying wrong, but I mean, if you're just pigeonholing yourself into one thing and you don't want to branch out past that, you won't really be the next, the owners of the business.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And I also totally agree, because it is important to decide what you want to do in your career, because the sooner you figure that out, the happier you're going to be for longer.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to work on projects and you want to make buildings and you want to make space, like just dig in and do that. But if you want to become an owner and you want to work with clients and you want to deliver projects to people, even though you're not actually doing the drafting, you excel at creating relationships, you excel at making profits. Like, there's all kinds of other aspects to this business.
Right.
If you endeavor to do that kind of stuff, then you have to kind of get out of production as fast as you can, but have a good understanding of how it's accomplished. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. I'm just wondering how much the technology either lengthens, because you may have that desire to move on, but then the firm may look at you and go, this guy is really good at what he's doing, so we don't want him to change. We'd like to keep him what he's doing. And
well, again, I will go back to what I said earlier about those people who are the owners recognizing
exactly
where their people can go and making that happen so that they can accomplish those goals. And so they should be asking that person, what do you want to do? Do you want to be the Revit superhero, or do you want to be doing this other stuff? And then it's up to you to just give them an honest answer.
Right.
And there may even be a point where, it's just like, they sit down and they say, hey, Neil, we really rely on, your expertise in BIM, and we really, appreciate all that you do on these projects. And you say, so, that's why we're going to be, you're going to be in this position, because we really, rely on you. And you're like, well, but I don't really want to just be in this position. I'd like to, do this, this, and this. If they only see you, if they don't, as Evan was saying, if they don't recognize that you have greater talents beyond just being, a really good draftsman or a really good Photoshop guy or a really good this or that, if they don't recognize past that, and you just kind of sit there and fester year after year in the same position, hoping for, something better, then you need to step up and actually tell them that, you want something better.
Or go find
it. Or go
somewhere
find
else.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or go find it.
Right. Well, and getting back to our article that kicked us off, if you are getting stymied or you're not finding that, apparently over the next 15 years, there's going to be opportunities out there because there's going to be less competition. So right? I mean, those aged in the 33 to 54 bracket are going to decrease. So, yeah, that's good news.
Well, so here's the question. Mm-hmm. Here's the question. For those people we sort of touched on it last episode. We touched on it with the millennial episode. We've touched on it a couple of times. Why are people leaving the profession in a time, and maybe they're just not seeing it, or maybe in the market that they're in, it hasn't rebounded yet, but we are I'll admit that it's been a slow recovery, but we are in a recovery stage, and jobs are coming back, and projects are finally starting to get, come out of the ground. I mean, we're working on a pool project right now that, it's been 5 years since the last time we really talked about it. And it was because at that point in time, it was a buildup, and then, the recession hit, and people, wanted to shore up their money and not spend it on, a project or whatever. So now they want to, readdress and start looking at this particular project again. And so here we are now, getting ready to move into construction documents on a project. So the projects that, kind of went on the shelves, or, new projects are starting to, pop up. So I guess in a way, I'm almost going to send out a personal plea. Don't give up on the profession, because the profession will be there. It's as we keep saying, it's what you've got to look for, the right place and the right area and the right people.
Well, let's get back to your question of the why are people leaving? I mean, a couple of things that I've seen happen, and just personally, but then also through different Twitter feeds and stuff like that. Just watching what's going on. I think obviously right now it's never been easier than it is now to start your own business. There's so many tools available. You can be connected to people all over the world very easily. So that's a huge benefit. But I think it still gets back to the thing I said earlier, which was a lot of people just don't want to wait. We talked about this at length on the Millennials episode, where people are just frustrated with the type of work that they're being asked to do. They don't feel like it's allowing them to develop into better architects. They feel like it is just busy work, right?
Right.
And when the older generation is staying for longer and longer, and they are not giving people ownership over the projects because they're micromanaging it, I mean, it is the kind of the perfect storm for people to say, screw this, right? I'm going to do it on my own. And so maybe they're doing it on their own. Maybe they're going into a completely different line of work, something that, is a plan B or a fallback, or maybe it's something they're even more passionate about. But again, because everything is kind of rebounding and there are more opportunities out there, it's like, what do you have to lose if you left for, let's say, 2 years? What do you have to lose when you ultimately come back to architecture? You're probably not going to pick back up too far from where you left off, right? So I think a lot of people are kind of wise to that and just saying, I'm not going to lose much. Let's try something. And now's my chance.
Right.
Well, I certainly think you're right. Over the last 5 years, then that was your chance. I mean, I know we talked about interviewing not that long ago, and one that I went on, they're like, oh, well, you've been on your own, or what's this gap essentially in your employment? And it's like, well, I don't even need to explain that, because the economy
got a free pass.
Yeah, everybody kind of gets a free pass. So if you're out there and you haven't been in, now's not a bad time to consider looking at coming back if you're interested, because things have really heated up. I would say from starting this fall, at least personally for me, I've seen it, and other people I know, things are definitely getting better. So
and in our line of work, there's been bonds that have been passed, and there's projects coming off the shelves, and things really are heating up. And there's a ton of shuffling going on, right? People are moving. It's like shuffling the deck of cards. Everyone's kind of mixing and matching, going to a firm that's maybe closer to them, or a bigger name, or there's so many reasons why. But a lot of people are just taking this opportunity, seeing the tide coming in of all this work, and saying, okay, I'm gonna reposition myself into something different.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean. There was the time where you were in a firm, and if you had a position and you knew it was kind of stable, but the economy itself wasn't that stable, it was a good time for you to basically just kind of like hone your skills, get a little bit more experience, learn new software and things like that. And maybe now that it's starting to pick up, they're like, well, I really tried that, schools thing, but it really wasn't my thing. So I'd really like to try something else, so now has been a good time to, start looking around because of that opportunity.
Yep, absolutely.
Totally agree.
Well, I was going to say, back to the actual point of the article. I mean, so, here we're going to have this, and I keep saying outflux, and I know it's not a word, but you know what? I mean, this is ArchiSpeak, and hell, we get to make up words.
It's our show. We can say whatever.
But I keep, so, I mean, here we have an outflux of essentially the skilled management. And, we've said in the past that, a lot of times there's really not been, we know in school that we don't really learn a lot about the business. And, a lot of times people in the boomer generation, and I was having this conversation with someone in the past that, they almost lucked into learning the business and things like that. But there's a great wealth of knowledge in the lucking that they did. And I think that this is really now the opportunity to pick the brains of the boomers and really try to figure out, hey, what worked, what didn't work. You've been in this business for a while. You've seen the ups, you've seen the downs, you've been able to, ride through recession after recession. How do you do it? Because, we are definitely one of the least recession-proof professions because we ride on such a huge wave of economic factors that push us into poverty or push us into prosperity. So, this is an opportunity for us to be able to pick the brains of these guys who've been able to really ride this wave and be able to be successful or at least stay in business, which I think is success in its own right. So use the opportunity that we have in the coming, decade to learn from them. But like I said, figure out a way to make it the new generation of architecture, whether it's I don't want to get into all of the whether or not. I think that this is the opportunity to learn from these guys and really start to reshape this profession, because a lot of disenchantment is the way that the profession is run now. Okay, learn how to keep a successful business, but then learn how to reshape that business.
All right, it's time for our second sponsor of the show, Bueno Box. And who is Bueno Box? Bueno Box is a company that aids firms in the process of transitioning into, you know what's coming here, Revit architecture. They provide a wide range of Revit services that include training, template creation, advanced family modeling, standards, and library implementation. They also provide realistic renderings, animations, and real-time walkthroughs, so they offer it all. They've helped many architecture firms transition from AutoCAD to Revit, and they understand the importance of integrating your current standards and workflows. They are designers as well and understand how important the process is. Their renderings allow them to act as an extension of the design process by giving your client the ability to easily explore many options very quickly, side by side with the design. And if you're beyond the beginning stages of Revit, they offer lots of other services as well. And if you go to their website and check it out, click on the BIM Services tab, you can see all the other things that they do. So if you know your way around Revit, but you don't want to spend your time creating custom Revit families, they do that. If you don't want to spend your time doing 3D visualization, they do that. They also have tons of other stuff, so check it out on the Bueno Box website. So if you're interested in exploring what they have to offer, visit buenobox.com or send them an email at info@buenobox.com, and their links will be in our show notes as well. Thanks, Bueno Box, for sponsoring ArchiSpeak.
Yeah, I think this article that we're starting off, that we started off with here tonight is kind of really just kind of looking at it from, thousands of baby boomers are going to leave and there's this huge brain drain and the clock is ticking, what this architecture is doomed. That's kind of the sort of the way the article's going. And I think, as I sort of alluded to earlier and what you were just saying, Cormac, this is an awesome opportunity to take it upon all of us, regardless of where we fall on this age curve here, to learn and as we've recovered and as we're recovering this profession over the next decade, really have. It's maybe tougher when you're in your 20s to think about, where am I going to be in 10 years? And I know that, it never made a whole lot of sense for me. It sounds a little cliche, like, I have a plan or something. But think about your plan in the profession. And you don't know where you're going to be in 10 years and, personally, or maybe you're married, you have kids, or you don't, or, that can all be up in the air. But think about where you're working now and look at the leadership that's there. Think about how old they are. Think about when they may be moving on and, the people below them, and really kind of build a strategy about what first you want to do, and if it does it fit at that firm, or are you going to get something from that firm and then maybe move on, or if this is a place you want to be and stay at, then you really have to be thinking 5 to 10 to 15 years, what happens. Now, a lot of things can change over that time. You know, some of those principals may leave. It happens. So that can open up different doors and avenues. But you really should look at the firm you're at, or that you may want to go to, and start thinking about that. And that's probably something really hard to do when you're in your 20s, because you're just trying to learn just trying to learn the business. And but when you're in your 40s, it's a slightly different thought process, because you look at, say, some of the owners of the firms, and they're maybe 60 or nearing 60 or just over 60, and it's like, well, where are they going to be in 10 years? And that's what you were talking.
Or 85, like Frank Gehry.
Or 85, yeah. Well, then
they may never leave.
Flip him the bird and move on, right?
They never die,
and he'll never die. Well, that may happen too. That may happen too. But as you alluded to, Evan, the leaders in these firms need to start thinking, if they're nearing 60 or something, is like, okay, well, who's the next people to step up? Who do I want them to be?
Hopefully, they're already thinking of that.
Well, they should be. I guess that's my point, is that they should be, and you should be.
Yeah. If they're starting to think about retirement, they should have, at least 10 years prior, started to think about their replacement.
Right.
Or fostering their replacement. Although Neil, as you're...
I'm just going to throw in there, though,
sure.
Cormac, is that I think the most recent recession has thrown a monkey wrench into maybe some of those plans for a lot of people.
Yeah. Although all I could think of is, as you're, explaining, the process of, this thinking process, is, okay, here's a guy sitting at his interview, and he's looking across the table at the guy who's interviewing him, and he's like, you're an old guy. You're probably going to be dead soon. I think I'll work here because I'll take over then. I'm sorry, it was just so horrible.
Guys, got to be guys.
Guys being general here. We're not.
It's kind of like the gold digger guide to job searching.
Jeez.
I'm sorry. It was what I was thinking.
That's okay. But that is true. It's somewhat true. You may not be given the keys to the castle, but you have to think about, if it's a smaller firm, who's the next in line, and do you want it to be you, and what do you have to do? And you really start to need to asking that question of the owners at that point, or owner, if it's only one. What do they want to do? Do they see you as that person or not?
Or do they see, hey, when I'm gone, I'm just going to close up shop and go, and you're going to have to go fend for yourself somewhere else. Yeah.
I think that's kind of the thing, is what are the different scenarios? What are the different plans? There needs to be some kind of long-term plan. And yes, it can change. But just as a quick story, a friend of mine took over, or he was planned to take over the firm. He got hired by this guy who was going to retire in 2 years. He took over the business. This is right before the recession, and he made it a very profitable business. And all of a sudden, the guy changed his mind, decided he wasn't leaving.
Oh.
Then what do you do? So I do think that these plans change and things can happen, but these do need to be conversations that are happening, right?
And I think that when you're younger and you're looking for looking for a place to, there's a lot of people who are just looking for experience. Then there's people who are really looking for a home. They're looking for somebody, a place that they can really feel comfortable with, grow with, and stay on board. And so that's how you got to look at it, is what do you want out of the firms that you want to go work for? Do you want to gain experience, so then, the next place you go will have that, you'll be more marketable to that place? or are you looking for a new home? And then if you're looking for like a home that you can grow into and build into, that's when you really start to, that's when it's hard because, a lot of times when you're on an interview, you really can't kind of delve into like the inner workings. But that's when, you really try to kind of pull out of them, what is your long-term goal and what are your, plans for the future of your own company. And, do you, like to promote from within and just, you start to feel them out on what their own goals are for when they retire.
Right. And I think what you were saying about asking those questions in your interview can be different depending on where you're at in your career. If you're later in your career, I shouldn't say later, but say in your mid-career, those questions might be a little different than, if you're younger in your career.
True.
Maybe how do you mentor people? How do you educate them? How do you bring them through the firm and up into the firm into more leadership positions later on? And might be a little bit different. And that's okay. I mean, you have to really focus your questions on where you are in your career and what you're hoping to achieve, because that's what it is. It's your career. Yeah. And I think, Evan, I can't quote you on this one, but you had a great quote about, it's taking charge and this is your career.
Yeah.
It is what you make it, I guess.
Yep.
So, and I guess back to the article, this is a great opportunity because there's going to be less people in the profession over the next 15 years, according to this. And so it's really wide open, I think, for everyone to get in. And I really like what you said, Cormac, about this is also an opportunity as we, as some of the old guard, if you will, of the profession gets out, as you said, Evan, gets out of the way. Whether they do it willingly or not, they will be getting out of the way. And hopefully this will be an opportunity for other people in the profession to really kind of look at it and possibly even, from the AIA's perspective or something. I think they're starting to recognize, hey, there's a whole nother group of people out there that we've ignored for a long time. And yeah. I think that's beginning to change. I was really positive and very happy to hear that. So excited to see the number of women being involved in the profession now and really taking on leadership positions, especially with the new first, I don't know if I should say it's the first woman president of the AIA. I'm not sure if I'm positive on that, but I'm sure somebody will tweet us and let us know if I get that incorrect. But this is all exciting things. That this is such a great opportunity. And hopefully now as we emerge from this, dark hole we've been in, and we can look past this, as the article says, and say, where are we going to go now?
Yep.
It's up to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think in a recent press release, NCARB even said that this isn't your grandfather's NCARB. They're using language like that.
Yeah, and from what we heard from at the Equity by Design conference, NCARB's making a lot of changes. And it's very exciting changes because they're getting more flexible. They understand that it's difficult to get licensed. It takes a long time, and they're trying to change. And that's another exciting thing. I think it's them really kind of looking at the profession, and like you said, it's not your grandfather's or not your father's NCARB, and that's positive. This is all good news.
And that goes back to what we were all saying about, so why are they leaving? And I think that these positive changes, I know that there's going to be the old guard who's like, back in my day we did it this way and stuff. Well, it's not that, we're not back in that day anymore. And, it's time to promote, a newer, richer, better, breed of architecture professionals. And, this is the opportunity. And so, that's why I kept saying this is an opportunity for architecture to remake itself. I mean, the old guard where, people are like, I really don't like architects because they're this, that, or the other and stuff. Here's the time to rebrand, or let's give them a different architect to think about, or let's give them a different kind of profession to think about.
Absolutely. Well, guys, think that wraps it up.
Yep.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. And don't forget to check out our sponsors and make sure you let them know that you heard about them from us, because that will really help us. And hopefully they'll stay on as sponsors. And if you do have comments, check out our Twitter account at Archispeak, which is ARCHISPK. And then if you really want to comment, please give us a call at 415-484-8496. And thanks for listening, everyone.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I died in South Africa. Oh, they outlined my body in Tiffany blue. And when I died, I drove right in and swam with the dolphins and Lisa Frank and you. My funeral was beautiful. Oh, we got it for days on end. Thank God I'm cut, 'cause of my kind of luck. I'll be up on the block in front of all of my friends. This is what you get. This is what you get. This is a schedule. This is a set. It's unpredictable unless you forget. If you blow, you can bet. I know. This is what you get.